Welcome to the Wilson Wealth Show, a thought-provoking show about building wealth in the new economy. Each week, members of the Wilson Wealth team and their guests will discuss how to navigate the world of personal finance, stocks, real estate, and entrepreneurship to help you build wealth in the new economy. And now, here is your host, Sierra McCosh.
Hello, and thank you for joining episode 8 of the Wilson Wealth Show, The Value of HBCUs. My name is Maurice Wilson. Bobby and Sierra are off for today's episode. They will be coming at you next month for Women's Month, March 2021. Please tune in for that. They've got a series of episodes that cover how women have progressed in the workplace and decisions that they've had to make. And we'll wrap things up that month with a special episode about have women broken the glass ceiling in corporate America. This episode, we are talking about the value of HBCUs. Again, it's just me, Maurice Wilson. And this episode actually came up in a very interesting way. Anybody that's done podcasting or created social media content knows the challenge of coming up with ideas for episodes. And so as we were brainstorming episodes for the month of February, I started coming up with ideas that eventually became our 2-part episode for dating and money, which, by the way, you can find on our website, wilsonwealth.com. You can check the blog section and you will see the dating and money episodes. So I was thinking about the whole Valentine's Day theme and ways to tie it back to wealth building and money. And it was actually Sierra, our co-host, who came up and said, "Hey, Maurice, well, February is Black History Month. Why aren't we doing something tied to Black history?" So we had totally missed it. And for those of you who are just joining the show, if you've never seen Sierra, it's easy to think that, hey, Sierra, kind of like Sierra, the singer who's married to Russell Wilson, Sierra must be Black, but Sierra is indeed not Black. So, for somebody who's not Black to remind a Black-owned company that they need to do an episode about Black history really shows the power of having a diverse staff. So diversity definitely works, and it works both ways. And so I want to thank Sierra for recommending that we do a show about Black history in the month of February. So let's talk about it. The value of historically Black colleges and universities, otherwise known as HBCUs for the uninitiated. I am, in the interest of full disclosure, I am indeed a 3rd generation HBCU student. And in addition to that, I do have a master's degree from what we know as a predominantly white university, or PWI. My having degrees from both Black colleges and predominantly white colleges does not necessarily mean I'm biased against or for Black colleges when we talk about this particular topic of the value of HBCUs. I just wanted to let you know my background so that you would know about possible biases and conflicts of interest. With that being said, I want to also just iterate that this isn't about the classic HBCU versus PWI argument that seems to come up during or whenever people who graduated from a Black college versus people who graduated from a predominantly white college get together. They get a couple of drinks. We start getting into the debate about which one is better or should you go to a Black college. This isn't about that either. This is really just about the value that I currently see with HBCUs due to some things that are going on in our society and just when it comes to college. College is your biggest expense after the mortgage and before retirement. It's one of the big things that a family has to get right. One, to have your child have success, but also for the family to not go broke paying for. So it's very important. And so I saw something with HBCUs that was just screaming value to me. And I said, I got to talk about this. I do have some facts. It's going to be some conjecture. If you don't agree with me, please email me, call the show. We can get you in and kind of, have some interesting conversation. But this all starts with Kamala Harris. If you were around for the inauguration this year, Kamala Harris was sworn in, and that day it's a great day. You could feel the excitement, adulation, and appreciation, and just sense of pride that emanated from Howard University students and alumni. Howard University is considered to be the premier HBCU in the country, and Kamala Harris is a 1986 graduate of Howard University. But if you were watching that day, it wasn't just Howard University students and alumni that were proud of Kamala Harris. It was seemingly everybody that's ever attended an HBCU celebrating in her achievement. And that's something that I'm going to get to later in the podcast. Kamala Harris's rise to the White House was seen as breaking a ceiling for what African Americans from Black colleges could accomplish. And it paralleled in some way the ceiling that was broken 8 years earlier, maybe 12 years earlier, when Barack Obama became the country's first Black president. So if you're in the Black community, or if you're in a historically underserved or underrepresented community, you know the significance when someone from said community achieves something that is unprecedented. We've never had a first Black president until 2008. And we had never had a first VP, much less a female vice president, until this year. So Kamala achieved something that was unprecedented. When that happens in a community that's been underserved, underrepresented, or been faced with obstacles that are not generally placed in front of the broader community, it expands the horizon of what can be accomplished by you and your community. And that's what happened when Kamala was inaugurated. Here's a Black college graduate, female, women were seeing ceilings being broken, Black people in general, and then HBCU grads, more importantly, could say, hey, I can go to a Black college. And one of the cons of going here, that's been removed. I can compete in an open workforce. Kamala was Attorney General in California. I can rise to the White House. That was big. And so that just really got me thinking, like, man, with the final frontier being expanded for what you can do as an HBCU grad, I just started thinking, like, well, what else, is going on at Black colleges that we're maybe taking for granted or haven't really, said in a way that people have thought about. And so, colleges are families, as I said before, a family's biggest expense after the mortgage and before retirement. So if we can get college right, it actually helps to make for a better retirement for the parents, because paying for college and retiring successfully are largely intertwined for most families. So this is where, again, Black colleges come in. In my opinion, HBCUs offer one of the best values for college in this country. And so let's just start by talking about, what are the most important things that you get when you go to college? Like, what's important about college? And let's rank them. So to me, there are four things, if you will. I'm probably using the wrong term, things, but I'm doing extemporaneous here. So bear with me. This isn't our usual kind of scripted, and we've got the reports. I'm just kind of speaking to you personally, but the things that are important when you drop your child off on campus, like, what do I want my child to get? What's What's important? What's the determining factors that are going to make this 4 to 6 year venture beneficial for my child? And to me, ironically, the least important deliverable of the college experience is the actual degree. It may be tougher to learn calculus at Harvard than it is at University of Georgia, but hey, it's still calculus. And no matter how hard they make it at Harvard or Yale or Howard and Hampton, when you get your job, they are still not going to have you do calculus, which is so ironic. So you can have a very rigorous calculus experience at a Ivy League college, and unless you are working at NASA or doing research, you're not going to do calculus for most careers. And just thinking about education, let's not act like we don't celebrate these little nuggets. Hey, Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of college. Bill Gates dropped out of college. We celebrate when these, very successful people are successful in spite of dropping out of college. Like America loves people who, buck the trend. So what I'm saying is you drop your kid off at college, the education is largely a commodity now. It's not even the most important part of the college experience. And I'm going somewhere with this, but just keep that in mind. The third most important aspect of college to me is the job placement. I know that sounds ironic because, people go to college technically to get a degree, to get a job. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. But in terms of importance, the job placement is actually the third most important aspect. There are 4 important aspects of college, 4 important things that you get or do in college. To me, the least important is education. The third most important is job placement. And after that, it's networking. Networking to me is the second most important aspect of college. I tell kids who are going to college all the time, your job is not to get a job in college. Your job is not to get a degree. Your job is to expand your network wide. Everybody loves a college student. Nobody likes an unemployed graduate. So while you're in college, you can go not only on your own campus, but in campuses around the city that you're attending. I tell students, people who are going to go to college, you want to build a network of at least 250 people while you're matriculating through college. That is going to be more important than the actual job you get out of college. Because in today's society, you're going to switch jobs all the time. I was talking with a neighbor. He was walking down the street and he was talking with a friend and he's washing one of his cars and whatnot. And he was like, yeah, I'm starting to notice some things on my job. I think I'm going to switch. I was at this other company 3 years earlier, so I'm going to switch to this other company. Like that was unheard of in my parents' generation. You picked a job and you stayed there for 30 years. Now people switch jobs, I think, every 3 to 5 years. So the actual job placement that we used to think was so key, a college putting you with a certain Fortune 500 company and you're there for 30 years, that's no longer a reality for today's graduates. So that means the importance of where a college can place you after graduation has diminished. And what's more important now is the network that you can fall back on when you're looking for your next opportunity. I hear now that millennials look for opportunities. They look for employers that speak to different values that they, whether it's the environment, their position on social justice. Like millennials are always pushing the envelope on what they want from their employer. Well, having a great network to get you there is important. And to me, the most important factor of the college experience is the cost. I mean, when you talk to somebody about their degree or about college, it's not, hey, Harvard being, again, the #1 college in America or Yale or Princeton or some surprise pick. People don't talk about that. They talk about paying for college. You can get a great education, you can get a great job, and you can have a great network coming out of college. But if it costs you $250,000 to get it and you're drowning in debt, it's not going to feel like you won when you leave that campus. And so cost is the most important aspect of the college education. And this, to me, is where HBCUs begin to show their value. HBCUs don't cost as much as the predominantly white institutions. And so, especially when you consider their out-of-state cost. And so if the things that made people not pick HBCUs are being erased because Kamala Harris went to Howard and she is the first female vice president. If she has broken the ceiling on what's possible with an HBCU degree, and you can get that degree at a great cost, you're really starting to realize the value of an HBCU. Value to me is defined as getting more than what you pay for. In today's environment, you can argue that people are not getting great value on these degrees. Nobody thinks that coming out of college with $250,000 in debt is a great value. They're just paying it because they feel like this is the only route to get into corporate America. And they're finding out time and time again that that degree maybe wasn't worth the $250,000. And if there's a better way to get it, we have to explore it. So let's just talk about, again, looking at those things I talked about earlier. Let's look at, why I thought that. So the reason I thought a degree wasn't that important anymore is that we are in basically Internet 3.0, we're in a big information age. In today's environment, knowledge is literally everywhere because of the internet. There is a YouTube video, a Facebook masterclass, a Clubhouse conversation, or a LinkedIn essay about almost every subject you care to learn about. And then after that, there are resources such as Khan University and countless educational apps that cost a fraction of what we pay for college. And then after coronavirus, we're learning, hey, I can actually get these classes from the comfort of my home. So I can avoid room and board. I can avoid, all of the headache of having to support myself while I'm in college. I can take these classes online, live at home with my parents, and maybe work a little job on my own terms. So the education, because there's so much of it, it's kind of devalued, not in terms of what you get, but in terms of what you need to pay for college. So in that respect, an HBCU with their attractive price points really makes a lot of sense. If you can go to the HBCU, and get that same degree at a better cost, which people are already doing this with community colleges. They're already doing it with colleges like, here in Charlotte, it's CPCC. But everywhere you go, the community college that was kind of an afterthought in the 1990s has now become like a premier institution because people are realizing like the degree, just getting the degree is important. You don't necessarily have to have it from these name brand institutions. Secondly, let's look at job placement. Now I'm speaking from experience, and so people can debate me on this, but it's been my experience that HBCUs tend to have a pipeline to a lot of Fortune 500 companies, particularly in the area of STEM. And now now that we're kind of in this racial justice movement where companies are really tying CEO pay to how diverse their hiring is, how diverse their workforce is, and not diverse just in terms of race, but in terms of gender. HBCUs are going to play an even more prominent role because if you need to diversify your employee base, well, it makes sense that you would go to a historically Black college to find your doctors, your lawyers, your engineers, your business people. So HBCUs are going to be front and center now to help diversify America's workforce, especially now that CEO pay and promotions and things like that are being tied to how diverse your workforce is. And then networking. One of the greatest things about an HBCU that I didn't even know when I attended was the network. So if I went to University of Michigan and I went in for an interview and the person interviewing me was also a U of M grad, well, I stand a pretty good chance of getting that job. But with HBCUs, as long as you went to an HBCU, if the other person interviewing you also went to an HBCU, you're kind of part of a broader fraternity. And we saw that with Kamala. Like it wasn't as if, people who didn't go to Howard but went to HBCUs were saying, well, that's a Howard story. I mean, it's nice for Kamala, it's nice for Howard, but I'm not tied to that. There was a communal celebration because Kamala represented all HBCUs. She might as well have been Miss HBCU, during that inauguration. And so when you go to a Black college, when we get down to the value of HBCUs and what they offer, your networking, which I said was the second most important thing you can get from a college experience, is your network. Your network, it grows exponentially just by graduating from that HBCU in a way that I think is kind of unheralded or unprecedented at other colleges. It's probably the wrong word, is not present at other colleges. And then finally, the cost. So I went back and I looked at a number of state universities in the Southeast and looked at their tuition. Now, ironically, in-state tuition for majority institutions and Black colleges is almost about the same. But since most kids don't want to stay in the same state that they graduated from high school from, the out-of-state tuitions at your HBCUs are very competitive. I invite you to look it up, and we're going to have some stuff on the website. Feel free to email me. I don't want to get into the actual numbers, but there's a material cost benefit, if you will, to going to an HBCU if you're going to go to school out of state, at least at the 4-year degree level, 4 or 5 year degree, depending on what you major in. And so that gets at, to me, the biggest factor of college that's going to determine if you had a good experience. You're going to get the degree. We're assuming you're going to get a job, right? But you're going to really need to build that network, and HBCUs are going to give you a great network. And then the cost is such, at least for out-of-state students, so competitive that you really have to say, wow, I can start here and still go to a majority institution for grad school. And most folks who are serious about college go to grad school anyway. They put those 2 years in. If they don't go immediately after undergraduate, they go a couple of years into their career. So you're still going to get that majority school experience, but you're not going to overpay for college. You're going to get a great network at a great cost, and you're not going to overpay for it. And that is, to me, the value of an HBCU right now. And so just wanted to share that with the audience. We may expound more on this on my own podcast, The Wealth Equation, put together an infographic, maybe with some information I presented here. If you find this interesting, please inbox me, hit me up on LinkedIn. You can find out more about our show on Podbean. You can put the Wilson Wealth Show in. You can also find us on Instagram at Wilson Wealth, Facebook at Wilson Wealth, and Twitter at Wilson Wealth. Thank you for listening to episode 8 of the Wilson Wealth Show. My name is Maurice Wilson. Hope you have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Wilson Wealth Show, a thought-provoking show about building wealth in the new economy. Each week, members of the Wilson Wealth team and their guests will discuss how to navigate the world of stocks, real estate, and entrepreneurship to help you build wealth in the new economy. Please join us next time on the Wilson Wealth Show.